The United States is witnessing an unprecedented wave of protests as citizens take to the streets to denounce President Trump's draconian immigration policies. From coast to coast, Americans are expressing their outrage at the administration's cruel and inhumane treatment of immigrants. The protests, sparked by Trump's recent executive orders targeting immigrants, have grown into a powerful expression of resistance against his authoritarian agenda. The demonstrations reflect a deep-seated anger and fear among millions of Americans who see Trump's actions as an attack on the very fabric of American society. The president's decision to deploy the military to the southern border, his threats to overturn birthright citizenship, and his administration's family separation policy have all been met with widespread condemnation. The protests have been particularly intense in cities with large immigrant populations, where communities are directly impacted by Trump's policies. The scale and intensity of the protests are a testament to the growing public awareness of the Trump administration's assault on democratic rights. The president's rhetoric and actions have galvanized a broad coalition of activists, students, workers, and families who are determined to resist his agenda. The protests are not just about immigration. They are about defending the fundamental values of equality, justice, and human dignity. As the protests continue to grow, they pose a significant challenge to the Trump administration's legitimacy. The sight of millions of Americans taking to the streets to denounce his policies undermines Trump's claims of popular support and exposes the deep divisions within American society. The protests are a clear sign that the American people will not stand idly by as their democracy is dismantled. Trump's immigration policies are not merely a reflection of his personal prejudices, they are part of a broader assault on democratic rights and institutions. Since taking office, Trump has systematically undermined the rule of law, attacked the free press, and eroded public trust in government. His actions are a clear and present danger to American democracy. Trump's attacks on the judiciary, his attempts to obstruct justice, and his relentless assaults on the media are all hallmarks of authoritarian rule. He has repeatedly shown contempt for the norms and conventions of democratic governance, preferring to rule by decree and intimidation. His actions have emboldened white supremacists and other extremist groups, creating a climate of fear and intolerance. The president's decision to declare a national emergency at the southern border, despite the lack of any real crisis, was a blatant attempt to circumvent Congress and seize power for himself. His administration's use of tear gas against asylum seekers, including women and children, was a shocking display of brutality and disregard for human rights. Trump's authoritarian tendencies are fueled by his narcissism, his contempt for democracy, and his belief that he is above the law. He is surrounded by enablers who are either too afraid or too ambitious to challenge him. His actions have plunged the United States into a constitutional crisis, the outcome of which remains uncertain. As Trump has escalated his attacks on immigrants and democratic rights, the Democratic Party has responded with a deafening silence. Rather than providing a meaningful opposition to Trump's agenda, the Democrats have largely acquiesced to his demands, offering only token resistance and empty rhetoric. The Democrats' failure to forcefully oppose Trump's immigration policies is a betrayal of their constituents and a dereliction of their duty to defend the Constitution. They have repeatedly caved to Trump's demands for increased border security funding, even as he has used those funds to implement his cruel and inhumane policies. The Democrats' inaction is not simply a matter of incompetence or political miscalculation, it is a deliberate strategy. The party's leadership is more interested in maintaining its own power and privilege than in challenging the status quo. They fear that a mass movement against Trump could spiral out of control and threaten their own interests. The Democrats' complicity in Trump's agenda has left millions of Americans feeling betrayed and unrepresented. Their failure to provide a meaningful alternative to Trump's authoritarianism has created a dangerous vacuum that is being filled by far-right forces. Media critics and political commentators have been scathing in their assessments of the Democratic Party's response to Trump's immigration policies. They have accused the Democrats of being complicit in Trump's agenda and of failing to provide a meaningful opposition to his authoritarianism. Edward Luce, writing in the Financial Times, argued that the Democrats' failure to mount a more effective resistance to Mr. Trump's authoritarian instincts has been one of the most remarkable features of his presidency. He accused the Democrats of being missing in action and of sleepwalking into disaster. The New York Times editorial board echoed these sentiments, writing that the Democrats' response to Mr. Trump's assault on the rule of law has been anemic at best. They accused the party of being more interested in scoring political points than in defending the Constitution. The criticism from media outlets reflects a growing sense of frustration and anger among many Americans who are looking for leadership in the face of Trump's authoritarianism. The Democrats' failure to provide that leadership has left a dangerous void in American politics. Section 5. The Socialist Equality Party's call to action, building a mass movement for social justice. In the face of Trump's escalating attacks on immigrants and democratic rights, the Socialist Equality Party, or SEP, is calling for the building of a mass movement to fight for social justice and defend democratic rights. The SEP argues that the Democratic Party is incapable of providing genuine opposition to Trump and that only a mass movement of the working class can defeat his agenda. The SEP's call to action is based on the understanding that Trump's attacks on immigrants are part of a broader assault on the working class. The SEP argues that Trump's policies are designed to divide and conquer the working class by pitting native-born workers against immigrant workers. The SEP's program for fighting Trump includes the following demands: an immediate end to all deportations and the abolition of ICE, full citizenship rights for all immigrants, the repeal of all anti-labor laws, a massive expansion of social programs including Medicare for all, the expropriation of the banks and major corporations. The SEP argues that these demands can only be won through a mass movement that is independent of the Democratic and Republican parties. The party is calling for the formation of rank-and-file committees in workplaces, schools, and communities to organize resistance to Trump's agenda. Section 6. Rank-and-file committees, the foundation of a powerful resistance. The Socialist Equality Party emphasizes the crucial role of rank-and-file committees in building a powerful resistance movement against Trump's authoritarianism and the capitalist system it represents. These committees, formed independently of the pro-capitalist trade unions and Democratic Party, would serve as the genuine voice of workers, students, and oppressed communities. The SEP's call for rank-and-file committees is rooted in the understanding that the existing political structures have failed to protect the interests of working people. The trade unions, once powerful instruments of class struggle, have been integrated into the capitalist state and now function as tools of labor discipline for the corporations. The Democratic Party, despite its occasional rhetoric of social justice, consistently prioritizes the needs of Wall Street and the military-industrial complex. Rank-and-file committees, in contrast, would be democratically controlled by their members, allowing for direct participation and decision-making from below. These committees would provide a forum for workers to discuss their grievances, strategize collective action, and build solidarity across different industries and communities. By organizing independently of the pro-capitalist institutions, rank-and-file committees can break free from the constraints of the two-party system and advance a truly progressive agenda. They can link the fight against Trump's immigration policies to broader struggles against economic inequality, racial injustice, and imperialist war. Section 7. Beyond the streets. Organizing in workplaces, schools, and communities. While mass protests are a vital expression of popular dissent, the fight against Trump's authoritarianism cannot be won on the streets alone. The Socialist Equality Party recognizes the need to extend the struggle into workplaces, schools, and communities, building a movement that can challenge the power structures at their core. In workplaces, rank-and-file committees can challenge exploitative labor practices, fight for better wages and working conditions, and resist attempts to divide workers along racial or immigration status lines. By organizing work stoppages, slowdowns, and ultimately, general strikes, workers can exert significant economic and political leverage. Students, already at the forefront of protests against Trump's immigration policies, can build on their momentum by forming student unions and organizing walkouts and campus occupations. They can demand an end to the militarization of schools, challenge racist and discriminatory policies, and fight for affordable education for all. Within communities, residents can establish neighborhood assemblies to address pressing issues such as police brutality, lack of affordable housing, and inadequate public services. These assemblies can serve as a platform for direct democracy, empowering residents to take control of their communities and implement solutions that meet their needs. Section 8. A world on the brink, the urgent need for international solidarity. The struggle against Trump's authoritarianism is not merely an American issue, it is a global fight against the rise of far-right nationalism and the capitalist system that breeds it. The Socialist Equality Party recognizes the interconnectedness of struggles worldwide and calls for international solidarity among working people. From the streets of Paris to the factories of Bangladesh, people are rising up against austerity, inequality, and oppression. The rise of right-wing populist leaders like Trump, Bolsonaro in Brazil, and Modi in India is a symptom of a global capitalist system in deep crisis. The interconnected nature of capitalism means that the exploitation of workers in one country is directly linked to the exploitation of workers in another. The The fight for workers' rights, social justice, and environmental sustainability transcends national borders. The SEP calls on workers and youth around the world to reject the politics of nationalism and division and to unite in a common struggle against their shared exploiters. By building international solidarity, we can create a powerful movement capable of challenging the capitalist system and building a just and equitable world. Section 9. The Future of Democracy. A call to action for all people of conscience. The future of American democracy hangs in the balance. Trump's presidency has exposed the fragility of democratic institutions and the willingness of the ruling class to abandon them when they no longer serve their interests. The time for complacency is over. All people of conscience must take a stand against Trump's authoritarianism and the capitalist system that produced him. The Socialist Equality Party calls on all those who cherish democratic rights, social justice, and human dignity to join the fight for a better world. We must reject the false choice between Trump and the Democratic Party, both of which represent the interests of the capitalist elite. The only way to defeat Trump's agenda and create a truly just and equitable society is to build a mass movement of the working class, united in struggle against the capitalist system. We must organize in our workplaces, schools, and communities, demanding an end to exploitation, oppression, and war. The challenges ahead are daunting, but the stakes are too high to remain silent. The future of democracy, and indeed the future of humanity, depends on our willingness to fight for a better world. The time for action is now.